Hey folks, Machinery Pete here. Hope you caught our latest podcast episode, which went live yesterday, episode number 6 of our Machinery Pete podcast. The story on this 1990 John Deere 4955 two-wheel drive tractor from West Texas, only 958 actual hours on it. Really cool story. I interviewed the gentleman who now owns this tractor. It was his father's, Larry Holly from Brookings, South Dakota. Now, Larry reached out to me about a month ago. He'd heard about people talking about Machinery Pete and how we tell tractor stories in our audience. So anyway, he just reached out and he said, Pete, my father passed away 4 years ago. His dad was Joe Holly Jr., 90 years old. And he said, Pete, my dad bought this thing on December 27th of 1990 for tax purposes on the advice of his accountant. And then hardly used it. He retired from farming shortly after that. And Larry told me that, he and the other siblings now are, just working on the estate, and they're looking at selling this tractor either privately or possibly at auction. We talked about that. But I said, Larry, honestly, the best thing you could do for me would be to tell us about this tractor yourself and tell us about your father, Joe. And turns out, quite a unique story. Larry's father, Joe, was quite an entrepreneurial farmer down there in the little community of West Texas. So Larry sent me some video. You can certainly check out the podcast. Just go to machinerypete.com/podcasts, or anywhere you get your podcast. Just look up Machinery Pete. It'll be there. But now here is some more walk-around video and more deep, really cool information from Larry Holly about the history on this family-owned 1990 John Deere 4955 with only 958 hours on it.
Hey Pete, Larry Holly here from Brookings, South Dakota. I'm videoing the John Deere 4955 I told you about that belonged to my father. I'm here at our family farm in West Texas, which is about 70 miles south of Dallas. It's in the Blackland Prairie Resource region of Central Texas. This tractor that my father bought, he bought it brand new December 27th, 1990 on the advice of his tax accountant, saying that he needed to spend some money that year to make things right. So he went out and bought this tractor. He probably didn't need it, but he figured that would be the best thing to do, put his money into. And I want to tell you a little bit more about this tractor. I think it's pretty neat, pretty special. And now you're seeing it in video versus me telling you about it in email and telephone calls. I'll stop this video and we'll turn around and focus on the tractor. So here's the John Deere 4955. You're seeing it in its original state. This tractor again was purchased in December of 1990 from the local John Deere dealership in Waco, Texas. At the time when the order was placed by my dad, he had a liking for rice and cane tires. And if you notice the duals on the rear, those are high cleated rice and cane tires. Our farm is situated in the Blackland Prairie Resource region of Central Texas, and it's 100% clay. So the old adage is you stick with it and it'll stick to you. So this tractor was used before minimum tillage and no tillage really worked its way into the area. So this was a tractor used for conventional tillage, and getting some traction in the 100% clay was imperative. So we found we had better luck with rice and cane tires. So long way around to tell you the story, but the tractor originally came from a dealership called McKinnon Equipment in Dumas, Arkansas, according to the paperwork that I have. And I know that's rice country, so up in that area, so I'd assume it was like a dealer to dealer transfer from Arkansas to Texas, and hence the reason why it's outfitted with the tires that it is. I understand that the tires on the front are a little wider than normal for the 4955. I have the paperwork on it explaining, but these are the original tires on this tractor, original front rack of weights. We had like I said, we had the dealership in Waco to take a look at this tractor and update the things like any cracked hoses, that may have occurred from sitting. And when I say sitting, to give you an idea, when my dad retired in 1990, or mid-90s, he was active somewhat, and then eventually by the time it got to about around 2006, he was confined to the house. So from 2006 to present, 2019, this tractor was not started. It sat in the barn, four-sided shed with a roof, barn kept, and as you see it, still has the original dust on it as when it rolled out in June before we took it to the dealership. They didn't wash it. It's in its original state. I thought it would be better to be left that way, so you're seeing it as is. They put a new air compressor on it, some rubber hoses, some other things, maintained it, changed the oil filters, etc. And I think what I want to show you here is the cab had an issue with the headliner and some of the sides. It had dry rotted here in the Texas heat, and it was falling out. So I thought, to do the tractor justice, the best thing to do is just have the cab redone. So that's what we did. Dealership took the interior out and changed the interior, and so it would look more favorable to the tractor and coincide with the hours, the 958 hours on the tractor itself. That seat that you're looking at, it is the original seat for this tractor. The plastic on it is the original plastic that was covering the tractor seat when it came from the factory. My dad would put a towel around the seat to protect it. It was just one of the things that he would do to protect his equipment. I'll show you some more as we go, but he really liked keeping things in original state as best as he could, and taking extra care of the equipment and making sure that it lasted a long time. Pride in ownership, I guess, is the best thing to call it. This is a console in the roof level. That little blue air freshener you see there is something that my mom put in the tractor for my dad, and I asked the dealership, and the dealership left it there for us to have, I guess as memory for the tractor for my dad. So we're looking here at the dash, and I'm going to raise the steering wheel here and move that steering wheel up with the lever. One of the things that was replaced on this tractor was the tachometer. The tachometer didn't work. I had 958 hours on it, but like I say, this tractor hasn't been started since 2006, that I can for sure say. So due to lack of electronic activity, from what I understand, is probably the reason why we're seeing it where it had to be replaced, that it did not work. However, when this tractor is sold, I do have the old tack. It's right beside it. It's there in the bag and the box that it came in, and just make sure that that goes with the tractor itself. You see here that my dad did an addition. He put a pipe in for a trip lever for anhydrous. He had a saddle and a tank that sat on the front of this tractor, and that was his trip cord to turn off and on the anhydrous. He also had one in the rear for a rear tank, and that's right here on the side. So those are a couple of alterations that he had, left those in. And the last alteration is down here on the floor, where he used a foot control for his hydraulics to control one of the implements. And you'll see the setup in the rear, where he would just step on the paddles there, or the buttons, and it would raise or lower whatever he needed there, versus the right-handed console levers. I think that's it for the cab, and it's in really good shape, as you can see, being totally redone. Everything works inside this cab, the radio, air conditioning, etc. So there's a couple more items I wanted to point out in this cab, and first one is this lighter. My dad was not a smoker, but that lighter has not been used, and it's in original form. And I noticed over here the ashtray has a little bit of dust in it, but no ash. So all's in good way. The dust in here is original from when we had it stored, and from any field use. It's again, it's in its original state. And just as my mom would put a little air freshener here inside the cab for my dad, there was one thing that was left in the cab my dad had inside of it, and that was he had a little whisk broom that he had behind the seat, and he would always take his whisk broom and clean out the floor after a long day, or if it got a little dirty, and brushed it out to the exterior of the cab. Just taking care of the equipment, just a couple of things, just a couple of reminders of my mom and dad in this tractor. So I'm back outside the tractor on the cab side, door side of the cab, and just looking here underneath toward differential, seeing a review here of what the tractor looks like underneath. You can see it's really not a lot of wear, no leaks, and everything is in a really good shape here. We'll swing around here where the you can see the rice and cane tire cleats on this tractor. This tractor came with the duals on it. We're walking around to the rear. We got a up close top of the cab there, and we have winds are picking up now. Talk a little louder into this camera and hoping it picks up my audio better. The rope there is for the anhydrous trip cord. You can see here on the rear that those foot pedals that I showed you in the cab, he had a hydraulic setup on a planter and a field cultivator, how he operated the cylinders, raising each side separately. Then we come down, and you'll see that this tractor was originally outfitted from the factory with 3 hydraulic setups. One here with the cloth on it, the second to the left, and the third one up above. I'd like to point out that cloth that you see wrapped around the hydraulics. That's something that we did as a common practice, and it's a dirty environment after you chuck in your hydraulics for your first time and everything's nice and clean. And then we would wrap this cloth around the hydraulic components and then tie it off with a little small copper wire. And basically it kept all the dust from getting into your hydraulic system. It's one thing my dad stressed, was to make sure that your hydraulic system stayed pure and clean as possible, because if you don't take care of it, it definitely will get dirty back here. So that has not been removed, so you're seeing it in original state, and we did this on all of our tractors. Just a maintenance program that we had for general care. I remember going to auctions, and my dad taught me some things. One of them, which was, if you're looking at a tractor to purchase and it looks like it has low hours, if you really want to kind of verify it, take a look at the drawbar, and the hole on the drawbar is to kind of correspond to the amount of wear that's in it. If the hole is all wallered out but it's got low hours, that's probably not accurate. But you know, somebody could change out the drawbar and it could have a new one on it, or it may not have the original. So that's not a final check, but that's just one of the things to check if you want to correspond hours of use to the tractor drawbar, because it'll show some wallering of use. The second thing he told me was that after you look at the drawbar, and if you got comfortable with it, you can always come over here to the 3-point, and he said if that 3-point where I'm pointing, if you pull on it and it's got slack, it means that 3-point's been in a pretty good use on the tractor. This one has no slack. I'm pulling on it, tugging on it, and it's not budging. So just more confirmation that we have that this tractor is been in minimal use. We have around the side here, this is a right hand side of the tractor. Just coming to the side, you can see right here, back to the differential side, pipes, no leakage, anything like that. Batteries are charged and ready to go. This is where the dealership noted that we have 958 hours at the change of maintenance. So that was nice of them to do that, outline that. Belts are in good condition. Nothing out of the ordinary on this tractor that was noted by the mechanics, other than they were totally amazed to seeing a tractor of this age and this low hours come in, and basically telling me that there is no doubt that the tachometer corresponds to this tractor. So you just have to see it, and anybody that's been around a low hours tractor will know that to be the case. There we go. It's the front side, a little wider front tires, and Firestones. Looks like they're the 14L 16.1s, and the original rack of weights on this tractor. Pete, I apologize. When I started filming this video, for those that would have a keen eye, they would ask, where's that toolbox out that came with the tractor? I started filming and I forgot to mount the toolbox on it. I took it off when we took the toolbox, or the tractor rather, to the dealership to do the maintenance repair. But this is the original toolbox that came with the tractor. Put it back on, and as you can see here that it opens up, and there my dad, and he always had a spare cloth, always kept a lot to make sure things stayed nice and clean best as possible. So yes, the toolbox, the John Deere toolbox that came with this tractor is there, and you're seeing it in its original state. But if you have a keen eye and you're looking for it, there it is. Just my fault, I forgot to put it on there. So what I'm going to do now, Pete, is I'm going to step in the cab and I'm going to crank the tractor up. We'll get inside here and give folks an opportunity to hear this tractor. And I'll leave the door open so it's not muffled from an insulated cab. We're looking there at the dash. Turn the steering wheel here to clear it up and get a good focus in on it. As you can see now with the new tack, there's 1.2 hours showing on the new tack. And I'll step outside here, get an open view. Yep, nothing runs like a Deere. back in the cab. And we'll test the horn. Go. Then we come to 1990, and his tax accountant says, Joe, you got to spend some money. And so my dad said, okay. So he went looking for a tractor. So since the tax advisor said that he needed to spend some money before the end of the year, that's what brought us to this 1990 John Deere 4955. And if you look at the paperwork here, this is the agreement that was written up. And you can see that he was getting really close to the end of the year. That's December 27th, 1990. And that's my dad's signature and the owner of the dealership, Vince Newhouse. And it shows where he was buying the 4955 and taking delivery on it. And he traded in a 4040 tractor to help offset some of that cost. And there's his price, $65,700. He got a $30,000 on a trade-in, and he owed a difference of $35,700. So then you come down here to the customer protection plan, and you can see where, again, December 27th, 1990, he's got his signatures, and owner of the dealership there. It's just a bit of provenance with the tractor. I've got a lot more provenance to go along with it, other than what I'm going to show you here in this video. Here is what I believe is to be the build-out sheet. It's on a pink colored paper, and actually it's got the best print. I had just noted that the 4955 came equipped with Rice and Cane tires. We really found a liking to those tires because they tend to grip that Houston black clay. That was the type of soil that we had in West. It gave us better traction. It was more efficient for the machinery because we were conventional till farming at that time. It was pre-minimum till and pre-no-till. So it's got, the print may not be super clear, but it talks about the tires that are on there and the codes that are there verified that it's Rice and Cane tires. One other note about this tractor is that that tractor must have been a dealer-to-dealer transfer because it came out of Dumas, Arkansas. And so a place called McKinnon Implement Company in Dumas, and they shipped it down to Texas, and my dad took delivery on it from the local dealership there. This is the security agreement for the rate and the payment loan schedule to John Deere. It shows his payments there. He penciled them in. And the contract here, again, a more readable copy of the variable rate loan contract security agreement. And shows the dealership. My dad shows that he made his first payment there. And gives the breakdown, terms of the agreement. Yep, interest rate. Looks like 12.4% was the annual percentage rate. And this agreement was signed just after December, signed there in January 9 of 91. So all corresponds to the purchase in 90 for the tractor, end of the year. Here is his customer protection plan certificate in the envelope inside, and then he made a notation that McKinnon Implement in Dumas, Arkansas was the original dealership that had the tractor that was shipped to Texas where he took delivery. And here's the owner's manual for the 4955. And then if you open up the first page, he made that notation again that the tractor was out of Dumas, Arkansas, and took delivery on it in Waco. So it's a bit of history, and like I say, I've got a bit more provenance on this tractor, a little bit much to be putting into this video, but if you have any questions where you would like to have some of that information or see it, I can send it to you. Hi Pete, this is Larry Holly, Brookings, South Dakota. I just wanted to get back with you regarding the fellow that owned that John Deere 4955, and that fellow happened to be my dad, Joe Holly Jr., spelt like holy, H-O-L-Y, but pronounced Holly. It's of Czechoslovakian heritage. My dad was born in 1924, and the picture that you're viewing right now is was taken in 1928. That's he and his twin brother, Raymond, and they're standing there. He is Joe. My dad is the one on the left, and they look like a mischievous pair in that picture, I'd say. But I guess it's par for the time, just pre-Depression era. But that picture was taken on the family homestead in West Texas, about 70 miles south of Dallas. Included in the family, Joe and Raymond, the twins there, they had a total of 3 girls and 3 boys. And of the twins, my dad was the younger of the 2. This picture reminds me of a story that my dad told me, and it was about that he and his brother at age 6, they bought a Model T truck and they brought it home, and they took it apart, they cut the frame down and forged it back together, and it kind of made a short wheelbase vehicle out of it, if you will. And I found it kind of hard to believe. I was going like, really? You bought a Model T, you tore it apart, cut the frame down, forged it back together at age 6. And he said, yeah, we did. And I said, okay. And so one day when my uncle was over, they were talking about the story again, and my uncle confirmed it. He said, oh yeah. He said, they did just that. Bought the Model T, cut the frame down, put it back together, forged it back together. And my uncle extended the story somewhat, and he said, yeah, he said, we took it out for a spin, and they were slowing down to make a turn, and at that time, the kingpin holding the front spindle on the driver's side, it snapped, and I guess Model Ts had a tendency of snapping kingpins. Anyway, the wheel folded back when they were beginning to turn, and it almost turned over. I guess that short wheelbase was a bit unstable itself. And my uncle said, yeah, he said, that's when your dad looked at me and said, it's all yours, brother, and he gave it to him. Anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting because, I guess those are the handheld devices. Back then it would have been a forge, and versus what we have now with young generations coming up with their electronic handheld devices, kind of a generational thing. But moving up forward here, this was an F-12 Farmall, and the years somewhere around a preteens for my dad, about probably 13, 14 years old, and he invented or built this floating cultivator. The uniqueness of it was that it pivots on the frame, and as I said, that they were farming in West Texas. It's a town about 70 miles south of Dallas, and most of the ground there is farmed. It's farmed on the contour. So you have a lot of terraces and you have a lot of terrace channels. So back then, when you dropped a plow on the ground, it was rigid, and farming on the contour, you weren't able to plow your crop or your field correctly. A part of it got missed due to the channel, or part of it got missed because it was on the high side of a terrace. So my dad, he built this cultivator so it would float. And the frame that's bolting to the frame of the cultivator, bolted to the frame of the tractor, actually pivots up and down. So when you're on the top of the terrace, the ends of the frame will go down. And when you're at the bottom of a terrace channel, the ends of the frame would go up. So you can plow your crop more evenly and uniformly. And I think my dad, he's a farmer at heart, but I think he also had another career, actually several careers, and one of them being an engineer or designer of farm machinery. So about a few years later, a thing called World War II broke out, And my dad went on to serve in the military, and that's his honorable discharge wallet that he got from the military. And I thought I'd put that in there. Real proud of that. I know he is too. So coming back from World War II, there were, like I say, 6 kids on the farm, and a lot of mouths to be fed, and there just wasn't enough land in the family farm to take care of everybody. So my dad took it upon himself to strike out on his own and become an entrepreneur and an owner of his own business. And right after that, he decided that his business was going to be a tractor repair shop, and that's what he got into. He opened his shop there in the town of West Texas. This is a photograph of my dad during that time period that my mom carried in her wallet, and we had the small photograph blown up a little bit there into a larger size, the picture on the left. This picture would have been taken around 1948, and it shows him working there on I believe that to be an Oliver. So moving over, it's my dad and my mom. At that time, that was an engagement picture, and my mom, Laureen Gronis, is the lady that he married here in November of 1947 as their wedding date. And after they were married, my dad continued on in his entrepreneur ownership of his tractor repair business. And he still continued to design machinery in the meantime. This is a flexible frame on a planter built for an Oliver 77. And you can see the knuckles or the pivots there that are bolted to the tractor frame of how the frame of the planter would pivot up and down when farming on the contour on farm terraces and channels. Here's a front picture of that. Shows the frame pivoting downward on the ends because he's got the front of the tractor. If you notice, he's got it up on a block, and just showing the flexibility there. Here he has the planter fully assembled. The tractor is still up on a block, pretending like it's on a terrace, and you're getting a better view of it on that white gravel picture that they have there. And then here he's got it where the gauge wheels are up on blocks. So if you're in a terrace channel, you're getting full contact with soil to seed when you're planting, and you're not going to have any skip spots or a bad stand due to the planter not being able to make contact with the ground. And the last picture is just showing the flexibility of going through a road ditch there. So my dad changed careers. He went from being an owner of his own shop to going to work for the Tractor Supply Company, and I thought this was kind of neat. He started with the Tractor Supply Company in, I believe, in 1950, and was a store manager there in Waco, Texas, through 1961. And here's a picture of him in an announcement in the Waco Tribune, the newspaper back then. My dad going on a trip to the Tractor Supply Convention in Chicago, Illinois. And they took the train, Santa Fe, to Chicago. Looks like his ticket cost him around $217. But I thought the letter here was kind of neat. It was his boss sending all the tickets to my dad to keep for he and his peers, and it said, if you lose them, you're going to be sleeping in the Pullman car rather than in the sleeping car, and then or the club car rather than the Pullman car. And then he said, if you lose the train ticket, you're going to be hitchhiking rather than going on a train. That's kind of neat. So after his career with Tractor Supply Company, he purchased the family farm, and that was purchase was in the late 50s. And we had a relative that was farming the farm then, and he took it over in the early to mid 60s. And one of his first major accomplishments is being the producer of the first bale of cotton in McLennan County, Texas. And here's a picture of that. This is 1971. So he's been farming about 10 years now, or 8 years on this farm. And that's me in the striped shirt there. It's a celebration of first bale in the county. Used to be in most counties in Texas, But this was a celebration that was well over 100 years in establishment, even at that time in 1971. Just a neat thing. I know he was really proud of that accomplishment. He was able to accomplish the goal to the first bale of cotton in McLennan County 3 times in his career. And here is the second time. This is about 2 years later, in 1973. I don't have the second picture, the third picture of the third bale. I only have the first 2. But that's there, pictures taken in the town of West. A gentleman to the far left was our president of our bank, Jerome Lednitsky Sr., and the gentleman to the left, directly to the left of my dad, is Joe Shulock. He was the co-owner of West Gin Company. It's my dad, and then me over on the right-hand side. And I think, as well as being proud of his agricultural accomplishments in the 70s, quite a few things that were happening. And he bought a couple of Mohawk plows, and I believe they were headquartered in Temple, Texas at the time. And he took them home, and he had some design changes that he wanted. And he told Mohawk what he was going to do, and they were intrigued by it. And before it was all said and done, they offered him a job as an engineer. This was in the mid-70s, and he turned it down. And he said no, he wanted to stay at home farming. And they came back to him, and they said, well, you can still do that. You can farm, but you could be a field engineer for us and design things for us in your own time. And he graciously turned that offer down too. I know he was very pleased to have those offers, but I think in his heart, he's a farmer, but he had his mindset on doing a lot of other things in agriculture and trying to make agriculture easier, try to do things easier for himself and on the farm and make it a better life overall. Here's some more of his inventions on the farm. If you've ever built a fence and had a post hole digger, you know that when you're augering down, the dirt is coming up, and it's hard sometimes to keep the dirt from falling back in the hole. So he designed a kind of a propeller that fits on top of the auger, and as the earth or the dirt is coming to the top of the ground, it's fanning it out. So you don't have to have somebody standing there with an hoe or another shovel pulling dirt away from the hole. So it would do it all mechanically, and actually it's a nice safety feature to keep someone away from that auger bit when it's spinning and digging a hole. You know, some of his other inventions included an 8-row planter for John Deere. It was a V-wing design that he invented and used there on the farm, and that is one of the implements that he pulled with the 4955. He also, when we were growing cotton, added a second set of fingers to an Oliver 23A cotton stripper. I know he's really proud of that design because at the time when we were stripping cotton, that was before picking cotton came in, or picker cotton came into our area. Stripper cotton was the primary variety grown. So the double set of fingers allowed less lint to be left in the field. You harvested more of everything that you planted, which is a good thing. And I know that he was really proud of that invention. He's invented a lot more things. In fact, the 1985 Chevrolet Silverado C30 one-ton I have, he has a specially designed hitch on the rear. I don't have a picture of it, but just another facet in his life of doing something different, but all in agriculture, all involved in agriculture, trying to make it better, simpler, easier, and taking care of things. And this is a picture of my mom and dad in their latter years. And I thought it would be appropriate for that to be the final showing in this video. I know he would be proud of this video, and I'm very thankful and very honored to share this information with you, Pete. And I appreciate this opportunity. If you have any questions or need any other information from me, please let me know. I'll be happy to research it for you or get extra information and send it to you. I think this is a good recap of the fella, my dad, Joe Holly Jr. living in West Texas that own that 4955 barn kept John Deere. Thanks again. So long.